Hi and welcome again to my channel. Okay, today I'll be talking about GitHub Actions. I'll be walking you through the marketplace and showing you all the actions, jobs and how to set up your workflow and how to set up your GitHub Actions as well. So with that, what is actually GitHub Actions? Let's just quickly go on here. So GitHub Actions is a CI/CD pipeline, that is continuous integration and continuous deployment. So it's also an open source deployment or open source CI/CD pipeline for DevOps operations. I know I've used a couple of workflows in the past and also in my channel, but I just don't want to keep using it without really explaining it in details and how you can create your own workflow. So I will just walk you through how to create, and we'll also do a demo of using a project from scratch and creating our own workflow. Okay, so to start off with that, I've signed in into my GitHub account and I have some repo here. So I can go to this repo and I will go to, okay, let me first create, I have a new project in my VS Code, but I want to connect this and push it. I haven't pushed the code yet. So I want to push it to my GitHub's account. So I'll go here and create a new repo, and I'll call this new repo budgeting. I'll make it public for now. I think this is okay, and I'll create. Here I'll copy the HTTPS link for this new repo that I created. So I will go to my VS Code. I have this brand new app that I haven't deployed yet, but I want to push this to GitHub, then show you how you can create, actions and walk you through all the actions and like how to create workflow. I will do ls. I am in the directory and I'm going to do git init here. Let me clear this. Let's do git status. Okay, I haven't even committed anything yet, but I want to look at the Git remote and nothing pops up because I haven't connected it to my GitHub account. I can also do like git commit because I've already signed in here. Okay, let's see what I can do. Git status. Here are all the things that I have. I'm okay to add all of this. Then I'll do git push. Okay, so now I have to set or add you see the command remote. Oh, let me zoom this in a little bit. Okay, remote add. Then I'll give it a name, which will be give it a name which is budget. Oh no, give it a name budget app. Then I'll paste the link, enter. Now I can do actually git add first. So when you do git add dot, it's going to add everything. I don't have issues adding everything, so I will just do git add. But if you want to add specific file, you can list the files that you want to add. But I want to add everything. Git commit dash message, that will be initial commit, and close that. Okay, git push. Okay, now it gives me the link of what I can use to push it. So I'll do this and it is pushed. Okay, back on here, let me refresh this page. Okay, so everything is in here. Everything I've typed in is on here. The code, everything is, set ready here. But now we want to go through, how to set up GitHub's action or GitHub Actions. First, you have to go on here. You have to be in the repo where you want to create the actions. You can go to actions. But before you start this, you have to first know the kind of project you're working on. Obviously, we are working on a Node.js application, React, and everything. So if it's a Python application, just know the programming language and know the kind of workflow that you need or the kind of actions that you need for your GitHub's action or GitHub action. Yeah. Here you have categories of how to start with GitHub Actions. You see there are suggestions for this repo. Is suggesting a lot of template. There is some for deployment if you're looking for continuous deployment. There is one for security. There is one for integration. There's one for automation, pages, and what have you. So if you have that, determine first. I'm going to be using the example of Node. I can come here and type, Node and see what comes up. If I do here, I see a Node.js template. There is published Node.js package. There is even other templates you can see, associated with Node. But just to show you something, I can click on configure just to look at it. I'm not creating it on the UI. You see an example of a workflow, how it starts. It gives it a name. A name doesn't matter. It can be anything you're determined to name that. But your job is going to run if there is a push and if there is a pull request on the master. You can change this. If you only want your action or your workflow to run when there is a pull request and it's approved, a pull request to the master or whatever branch, you can remove the push command and only go with the pull request. If you have a different branch, you can change it to master or main or the branch that you want if there is a pull request to before you can run the workflow. Here the setup comes on with jobs. You can have different or so many jobs for all the things that you different jobs for your package or different jobs for your workflow or different jobs for your pipeline. This one is just, simple, is actually just, checking out the code and, doing a simple run, a simple build, and also doing maybe installation of packages, of NPM packages, and also doing a test. So this is really simple and you can start from here. So if I'm to start, I can actually maybe just copy this and modify it and add other things that I want to add. But I'm actually going to cancel because I want to show you more things on GitHub Action. Yes, I'm okay to cancel. Then I still go back to Action again. And just to show you for deployments, there are just so many things you can use for deployments. For security, I actually like security. So you can go on here. There are just so many actions for security. Okay, but before now, I've actually like sat down and asked myself, like, this happens in a team when you're working on a project, even POC or like a big legacy project. You sit down and determine what is the source code, even if it's microservices, what are the programming language, what is the code based on, what do you want to have on the pipeline, like the security and the release, what you want to determine for your continuous deployment. But to start this, let's also explore GitHub Actions. So you can actually go to Google and search GitHub Actions Marketplace. So when you get on the marketplace, you can see a whole lot. And we're actually on the actions. The first thing you see for actions, let me close out this because it's the same thing. The first thing you see on actions is, let's go to the integration and we actually looked at Node.js. On Node.js, you see that the first thing here will be to do a checkout. And this is actually version 3. But you can look at the marketplace to look at what they have for checkout. You can type checkout here and see this is checkout. You look at the new version. Sometimes when you run this workflow, you might get, oh, the dependency, is deprecated. They have a newer version that is now, or so version won't be supported from so date. So you have to look for the version that is currently being supported. Right now is version 4. You can go and look how this can be used, and You can still use the same one you have in your template, but just be sure that you change the version to 4. And yeah, that's that for checkout, which is just like the first thing that you look at. Okay, so next I would, go back again and look at other things. Okay, so another thing that you will look at is runs on. So runs on, it can be Ubuntu latest, you can use other operating system, there is Mac OS, there is Windows. Let's even explore what they have for runs on. Let's see. Okay, let's go here and search GitHub Action runs on and see other ones you can run it on. Let's look at this. Okay, so on here you see the runners for there is Ubuntu, there is Windows, there's Mac OS. People usually just go for the Linux, Ubuntu. It depends on you, depends on your company or what you're trying to achieve. But typically I use Ubuntu. So you can also use Ubuntu if you're practicing. You can also use it for your organization. You can use it for your legacy. You can use it for freelancing and all that. So that is that with runs on. So next here is a Node version. Okay, because we are on Node version, if you're on Python application, you can also see like Python version. Let's even cancel and also look at Python application. So if I go back here, go to action, and I go to just type Python here. So let's assume we are deploying Python application. Let's look if there is something on Python here. Okay, so Python application. If I go to configure and look at it, on is the same for most templates. But another thing I have to mention for on, it can be on push, it can be on pull. You can also set up a schedule and have a cron job for your. I will show you an example that you can use. It's just what do you really want or what can you imagine? Then you can start researching that and you put that on. So if you want to set up a cron job for your workflow, you can set that up here. Then there is also another thing you can set up for either push or pull requests will be if there is a particular folder you want it to track. Like if there is a change, either a push request or if there is a pull request for this particular folder, only trigger the workflow. If there is no change in that folder, it's not going to work. And I've showed that in one of my tutorial, but just to also mention it here. I will show you also an example of that. Let me go here and show you that. I will open another one here. I guess in one of the repos that I have, the ISC. Yes, infrastructure as a code. Let's look at the workflow here for Terraform. You see, if there is a push on the master, only if there is a change in this path, which is like a folder, if there is a change in this Terraform folder, which is this. So it means if you make any change just on the workflow, it's not going to trigger. But once you make a change in the Terraform folder, then it's going to trigger. You can also track other, like if you go on this file and I want to only trigger it when there is a change on this jump host, like this simple EC2, you can set up the workflow to be slash, Terraform slash the name of that file. So once there is a change in that file, it's going to trigger. But because we said in this Terraform folder, everything, so anything, any change you make in any file that is in this folder is going to trigger. Then I'll also show you the example where I have a schedule for on. So if putting a cron job to maybe run every week or to run every day or to just, if you have that for like database, or you have like an ETL job, you can set up a cron to run the script or run the pipeline, pull the data, transform the data, and push to a database. You can set up a cron job instead of having to do this manually. GitHub's action is all about automation. You can automate things without having to be there. So you can set up a cron job. So let me show you the example where I wrote about using schedule. I will look at this other one, and oh, I guess I haven't pushed this yet. Or I should have. Okay, I will show you that it's still local. Okay, so it's still local. I haven't pushed it yet. So you see, there is a schedule. Now it's going to be a push on the main branch and also a schedule. I'm not going to tell you so much about cron jobs, what this mean. You can go to Google and search for, setting up cron job and know what you want the schedule to be to put on here. But that's that. Let's go back here. You can go to Google, search cron job. Okay, so cron job, but the cron guru. So go in here and determine what you want. So if I put um asterisk, I know asterisk for everything, it's going to be every minute. So it's going to be, every minute, every hour of every month, of every day, of every week, and every. But if you want this to be only weekly, you can come here and say, choose a day. So it means, okay, this is actually month. Um, but I want it to be day of the week. I want it to be every Sunday. Let's see what I have. Yeah, on Sunday. So every minute on Sunday. No, but I don't want it every minute on Sunday. Let's see. At minute zero. So maybe at 00, or like once it's Sunday, like 12 midnight, that's when it's going to run. So you can, explore this and determine what you want to set up for your schedule on your workflow. Okay, I'll close that out. And what else do I want to show? Yes, I've shown you for Python application. Okay, so with Python application is also similar to like Node application. First, you have to do a checkout, then you have to look at version. What we are talking about is like the Node version. Python version or Node version is really important for you to know what version did you use locally to set up this job. Let's say, for instance, right now I usually use Python 3.11. You have to set that up at 11 because all your dependencies worked locally when your environment was set, virtual environment was set up at 3.11, and all the dependencies were compatible with that version. You have to put in that version here. If you're using the lower version, you have to put it. Then it's going to run and install, do an upgrade of your pip and install all the tools, like all the dependencies or the modules that you have for your application. You can also set that up, here and put them one by one, or you can have everything in requirements.txt file. And to create this requirement.txt file is really simple. If you're done with your Python application, you can run the same way you have package.json for a Node or Java applications or other JS applications. That's how you have your requirements.txt file for Python. So you have to do pip freeze, and redirect it to the file name. Then it will list all the dependencies that it has used for the application in that file. Then you can run and install all the dependencies in this Ubuntu that you're running this on to install all the dependencies before running any other thing, which would be like, run the test, run a build. That. So let's go back again to our repo. Now let me go to this. Okay, I will show you this because this is a Python application and walk you through like the workflow. So this is what the workflow looks like. It is just a simple pull request on the master and look at the jobs. First would be to set up your runs on the machine is going to run on, which is Ubuntu latest. You have to do checkout version 4 and you have to set the version of the programming language or like the package you're using. And I have to install all the dependencies. So I have this all stored in the backend folder in a requirement.txt file, and it will install everything that is in that file. Then it's going to run a link. So now let me go back to the marketplace to like show you how you can get all these things. So you have to know, if it's a Python application, what are all the things that I need? What do I need for formatting? What do I need for testing? If it's a Node application, you have to start asking that question and start researching. Once you have a list for that, then you have to go for security. If you're implementing security in your pipeline, you have to start thinking through what are the type of security scan that I need in this application. First, you have to, think about, code quality analysis. You have to think about, scanning the dependencies. If you're creating a Docker image, you also have to start thinking, scanning the image, because the image comes with a base image. You have to scan for vulnerability. You have to start making plans like, what do I need? Once you have that plan, it's easier for you to determine what you need in your workflow. Back to the marketplace. And let me just to go back to thinking I'm deploying a Node application. Now I'm looking about, code quality analysis. What are the tools that I can use for code quality analysis? Oh, one that comes into mind is SonarQube. SonarQube, yeah, you can set up a Sonar server and, set up your workflow and everything. But you can also use Sonar Cloud. It scans and sends your scan to your Sonar Cloud. So let's just type code quality and see what comes out. Once you type code quality, now I didn't specify any language. So you have tons of, code quality. There is a linked action, there are different tests or different scans you can have for different language or different programming language. But we want to look at Sonar Cloud Scan. Now you're on Sonar Cloud Scan, you can see the version. The latest now is 2.11 is the latest. So use the latest version. So this is what it looks like. This is the start of the action. So 2.1.1. Let's just review it more to see on how to set this up. And when you go down here, you will see, the same thing, push or you pull request, and how you want your workflow to start. Then you have to set up the workflow name, runs on, the machine is going to run on, the GitHub checkout. Then you have to start setting up the job itself, which is going to be a Sonar Cloud. So the Sonar Cloud scan, which is already what we have seen, you see the version that you want to put on. Now you have to start thinking, what are the dependencies? What do I need for this scan to happen? Here you see there is a GitHub token. You have to create a GitHub token, which is personal access token. You can create that from your GitHub account. Then there is Sonar token. That means you have to go get a token from Sonar Cloud. Then you see, go down and just to have a review of what is going on here. What is it going to do? How are you going to set this up? Now you start looking, it's going to analyze with Sonar Cloud. It's going to analyze your code with Sonar Cloud. Now here there are questions, like project based directory. You have to show Sonar Cloud the directory that you want it to scan. I'll show you an example of where I've done this. Okay, let's go back to this. Yeah, this other one. Let's just look at the workflow. Let me just use it for the example that I'm going to talk about. Now we've finished with setting up. We've done checkout. Now we've done with the Node version. I've put the node version here that I want because I use node version 20 to run it locally. So that's what I need. And here to put in my or to install my dependencies in this Ubuntu leaders. It's going to do npm I, which is install. It's going to run lint. It's going to run prettier. All this is just to look at the formatting of the code. You can look at the result when this is done. So you look at the result, and if there are things you need to improve or work on. There is npm test, which is to test your application. You can set this up, and depending on the application you're building, then it's going to do a build, which is more like packaging your application in this runner. Okay, so back to this SonarQube. I used You can go back to the marketplace to search. There are tons of just search for SonarQube. Let's see here. We actually search for Sonar or for code quality. You can come here and search for SonarQube. There are a lot of people that have written things about SonarQube. There is even from SonarSource, and there is other people that have written on that. You can go and search, and I've looked at this one before. There is another one too. This would be actually to just set it up. So for different programming language, if you're using C, C Sharp, C++, you might have a different workflow for it. So just research based on your application. Let's look at this official one. Yeah, which is the one. So this is just to set it up. Okay, then to analyze with SonarCloud, this is the one we eventually looked at earlier, just to analyze with SonarCloud. And project-based directory. So this for this application, because I built a quiz app that had a front end and a back end, I wanted to first run for my front end, which is in this quiz app directory. So I have to show the directory where it's going to run the scan, and this is the directory. Now it's just a test for the front end. Now I did the same thing for the back end. But before you're going to use Sonar, you have to, you can check on Google how to set up, go to Sonar Cloud or IO, sign up. You don't necessarily need to use Sonar. You can search for other tools that you can use. But for this case, I use Sonar. So you can, go to Sonar and search. I'll also link the project where I talked on how to create your organization project key and everything, and add all the secrets in your GitHub repo. If you don't know how to add that, I'll also maybe show you how to add that maybe at the end of this video, or you can watch any of my tutorials to see how, or in the link I'm going to put in my description to see how you can set up your secrets in your GitHub repo. That's how you can use this. Okay, so you see the same thing I did for backend, which is the same process, and because it's also a node, I use the Express.js for the backend. It's pretty much going to do the same thing, but here I have to set the directory for that backend, which is called backend. Now for security, what did I do for security? Because yeah, you have to sit down and think, what security if I have a different backend can also be in Python. If I have a different backend, that means I'm going to run different security or different testing for the front end and the back end. For front end, since it's a React.js application, I was looking at I want to run vulnerability on all my files. I want to run on the dependencies, on you know, file scanning or my file system or code quality analysis. You can also go to, Marketplace again and search for snake. Because, okay, for you to come up with snake, you have to look online. What can I use to scan for vulnerability? There are tons of options. But I, went with this for this project. For different legacy, projects for companies, they have different scanning tools that they use. But for this demo, yes, I chose snake. So on snake, you see There are different, for different programming language. Since we are working on Node, I went to Node. If you're on Python, Ruby, you can also scan your infrastructure as a code. You can scan your Docker. I also use Snyk to scan my Docker, to scan for the base image and everything. I will go to Node, and what are the setup for Node. So you can copy this, and yep, this is all you need for Snyk. Then you can set up, arguments like, okay, set up your args, what you want for, and all that. And you have to set up your environment. So you have to sign up on Snyk, and sign up and create a token. I've also shown that in one of my tutorial, which I'm going to link in my description. Okay, back on here, you have to get the Snyk. But now for Snyk token, you have to also install the Snyk CLI. It's like a command line interface. You have to set up Snyk command line interface in this machine, and no, in your Ubuntu latest. I have to set up, Snyk CLI. I have to authenticate. So this is really simple, because when I ran with just the CLI and I did a code test, I came back with an error saying, oh, I need to authenticate. So I had to go back and search, on GitHub Actions, Snyk authenticate, and I saw this line and I added it. For backend is similar, because the backend is also on Node, is similar step. Now let's go to, building an image, Docker process on here. So this one is, now we are now deploying, we finished integrating. Now we want to deploy application, which is, once you build your image, you want to push it to Docker Hub, or if you're using ECR or any other registry that you're using for your project. Here, let's do a walkthrough of what is going on here. Of course, it's still going to run on the Ubuntu latest, and the permissions we are giving for this will be to do a read, do a write, and for actions. I was actually setting this up for the CLI, so it's able to, run the CLI. That's why I put all this permission. But to continue to build and push image to our Docker Hub, I have to, like, do a build. This is Docker command, and you have to, like, put all the Docker command. Okay, let's just go to Marketplace and see what we have for Docker. Okay, back, search for Docker. Okay, so Docker, there is build and push Docker image. You can click on this and look through usage. You see how this is set up. First would be to do a login, and you do a build and a push. What do you need for this will be your Docker Hub username, Docker Hub token. You have to create an access token on your Docker Hub. I've shown this too on the link putting in the description on the video, how to set up your Docker image and add this as a secret in your Docker Hub repo. So these are all the things that you need for setup. There are other options depending on what the case is. You can also set a path. So if you have to set up a path where your Docker file is, you have to use this other one and set up the path. Okay, there are tons of other examples you can look over and write your pipeline. So next here will be to, am I still in the same place? Okay, so here I started with, building Docker build in this directory. So I have to also tell it the working directory, which is the quiz app. So he knows that once he gets into quiz app, in that directory, you have to use the Docker file in there to build this. And let's look at that. This is for quiz app. You see there is a Docker file in here. So this is a Docker file it's going to use. And it's going to run an echo, Docker password is going to get the Docker username. And this password is actually the access token that you use as your Docker password. Then I added this, just to hide any of my credentials so it doesn't show in the log. You can, for legacy applications, you really have to, make sure that your logs are tight. So you don't have any leakage, you don't have any of your logins or like credentials anywhere. Okay, so once it runs a build, it's going to do a push. For this push, it needs this to log in. So once it echoes the password, it uses it to log in with the username and the password into your Docker. Then it's going to do a push to the front end, which is the front end that I showed you here now, which is this folder. Once it does a push, the next job will be to run a Trivy vulnerability scan. You can also go back here and search for Trivy. So Trivy is more like a file system, scanning for vulnerability. You can search on here. You see Aqua Security Trivy. For this, you also need a token. I'm not sure you need a token for this. Okay, you can see different ways you can use, Trivy, and let's go back on here. So for Trivy, I wanted to use it for, scanning vulnerability. I wanted to scan my images. So it's going to be scanning the base image and everything that is putting together. Then I went back again to Sneak CLI, because yes, I want to also use CLI to Sneak to for container monitor. Now, once your Docker image is running, it's now called a container. He also wants to look at the running process and monitor those process. That's why I had to also put Sneak here. Of course, for you to use Sneak, you have to put, the CLI, you have to do the authenticate before it can run the container monitor. Okay, so here it also checks for the vulnerability in the Docker image. So this is for the front end, and I did the same for the back end. Another thing I also have in my GitHub Action workflow is to run a scan on my Kubernetes manifest file. You just provide where the files is, or provide the folder is going to go in there and scan the files. Go back to Actions and go back to the marketplace and look for other things that you can, explore. Here there are categories. If you're doing API management, if you're doing code quality, chart, code review, continuous integration. Here you can start seeing actions like, let me remove this. Okay, let's just integration. You can see all the actions you can use for integration. But like I said, first will have to be, what kind of application do you have? What are the things that you need to do? Of course, you need to run a test. You need to format your code. You need to build an image. If you're building an image, you need to push this somewhere. You can also even use GitHub Actions to deploy. You have to set up Helm. You can also even use it to deploy or download, or to like set up your workflow, or you can use it for tons of things. But there are just so many things you can use GitHub Actions. So you have to go to the marketplace and look for what you want. I wanted to just throw more light on like the actions I've used in my GitHub Actions, and make sure people understand the reason why I use what I used and all that. I think that will be the end for this. There are tons of other things you can do with GitHub Actions. You can write your workflow. You can copy this. You can even go to the copy from the template. You can research like, okay, I want to do this. If you get error, okay, like I said, I'm going to go through the logs of this GitHub Actions to see like what we see for logs and everything. Okay, so actions on this. Let's look at the last action. Okay, this actually run on schedule, but let's look for something that was pushed on the master. Let's even look at this log of last week. Okay, let's look at something that passed. Okay, let's look at this log and see what went through. Okay, so for the front end, you see that first is setting up the job, is doing a build with Sonar Source, and is setting up our Git repo, checking it out, and setting up the version of Node. Here is looking at the installing the dependencies. It's going to run a build, and it's going to set up Sonar Cube. Then it's going to analyze our code. So this is the big one where it runs code analysis. There are just a lot of things to check out here, but you have to take your time to like read. If you're really into DevSecOps, you can review this and know how you want to make your application better with the coverage and code smells with bug and all that. Okay, so when you quickly just run through this log here, at the end of it, there was a success. Here for security, let's look at the front end, what it did for security. Okay, so setting up the job here, let's start with this vulnerability scan. So could not detect supported target files in this work. Okay, so with this, there is an issue with run this run command because of the root directory. I have everything all divided more like a monorepo that had the front end and the back end, and the job, the GitHub Actions job is on the root directory. So it had issues like going into the main directory to scan for that. So here it installs the CLI, it authenticates the CLI, say your account has been authenticated, and you see like the code test, code is not supported. Okay, runs the cleanup. Let's see what happened here. Okay, for front end image. Okay, let's just go to an action that passed. Okay, let's look at this one that and okay, so if you don't remember, like you ask why is the structure like this, it means that a test, so this is the workflow for the front end and this is the back end and this is for the front end. So it means for tests, it depends on nothing. But for the back end security, it has to depend on the backend test. So if the backend test is done before the security will happen, then before the image will be built. And same flow for the backend. But for this manifest scan, it doesn't really even require any of them. But I just wanted it to only run when there is, check on the security for the back end and the front end before it can now scan, the manifest file. Okay, so to review the code, you can, take your time if you're running this to review the logs from your setup. And if it's telling you anything that you need to go back to work on, there are even some jobs that will have to fail your pipeline. If they fail, you can also continue, put continue to true even if it fails. I think I have that also in the code. Let's see if we have any of those on here. Setup, analyze is actually a big log. And let's look at security. Okay, this actually continues warning. Here you see when your syntax are wrong, you will also see this in the log. Like, okay, maybe there is a place you put, unexpected inputs like fashion, valid inputs. It was expecting snake fashion. So I have to go back to my code to update this. And authenticate, it runs a test. Here you see it runs a test on my front end. And on that folder, you see there are things is indicating, allocation of resources without limits. There is, cross-site requests. Here is like going to this file server.js and telling you things that you need to implement or to make that code um, better. I've also, added this in the code, but I commented it out because it's just demo. I don't have to make it, super. I don't have to make it, super hard. I've commented those out. So you can uncomment it too. You can, use these suggestions to update your code and make it, or you can, if you're just DevSecOps, you can pass this information to the developers to improve on the code. So test complete. So these are like the information you're using, even though that there are code issues which it has detected here, but I also wanted it to continue like to run other things because I just need that information to upgrade the code, but does not mean the pipeline has to fail because of those issues that it has detected here. Okay, this is a post run, so this is security front end, and for back end, front end image, you will also see where it builds an image, and just take your time and review everything. Okay, so to show you how we can, do a simple workflow from our terminal, that's the VS Code. I'm going to copy similar actions from here. So I'll go to the code here, and just going to do the simple setup, version, and look at the workflow. Look at how the naming is. So if you're creating this on VS Code, let's go to VS Code now. On this app, let me clear this. Git status, I have everything pushed. I have to create this in my root directory. So while I'm in here, I will do new directory dot GitHub. Then inside GitHub, I'm going to create another directory, and I'm going to call this workflows. Then inside the workflows, I'm going to create a file, which I'm going to call whatever you want, but I'll call it CI. Let me call it cicd.yaml. cicd.yaml. Then inside this file, this is where I'm going to write my workflow, and I'm going to push this. Okay, I'm going to just copy the test, the front end test, and copy everything up until here. That's all I need. I'll paste that on here. Okay, so let's review the pipeline again. Okay, name, I'll call it budget app, budget app CI. On pull request, I want to do on push because yeah, I'm pushing for now. No, um, no pull request. Then the jobs, I'm just going to do app test. I'll call it app test. So this job is going to be app test. It's going to run on Ubuntu latest, and the working directory, I don't need to set this because it's the home directory. Everything is in the home directory, so I can just put this, just show is in the, yeah, I hope this works though. Then node version, if you want to find out the node you have, you can do node v, and I have 20. Yeah, so this should work. Then check out version 4, and yes, going to use our architecture, use our version. Okay, so here is going to install the project dependencies. I also don't have to Yeah, I can actually remove this ones. Let's remove it. Since it's the root directory, I don't need to specify the working directory. I can also remove this. Okay, and that's all that we have. Let me push this now. Git status. Let me move this up a little bit. So we have this file that we haven't added yet. So I can do git add and the name of the file. This will add it. If you run status again, you see there is nothing here. Now I'm going to commit added workflows. Then I'll push this. Okay, so this is pushed. Okay, let's go back on here. Remember the repo for this one is budgeting app. So let's go to actions and see. Okay, it failed in 1 second, so nothing happened. Startup failure. Okay, you know what I'm going to do? I can go here to GitHub Actions and new workflow. So for this new workflow, I'm going to go look for node. Let me just copy let's try with the template, which is this. Um, Everything on here is fine, so I'll just copy it. I'll edit this when I get to VS Code. So here, let me select everything and paste this new one. I'll clear this. Okay, let's just review this. It's going to be Node.js, that's fine. Push or pull request, that's fine. Runs on Ubuntu. This. Yeah, I can change this to I don't need all the versions. Control Z. I want to work with 20. And the steps is going to check out. Remember, we are now in version 4. Do this version 4. And that's all. So git commit updated the workflow. Then git push. Okay, so we've pushed this. Let's go back here. Because I copied this, I have to cancel. It's already created. So let's go back. You see that there is a job here. Or you can come to code, come to actions, and you see that we have something running. Okay, we can click and open it to see what's going on. Okay, so it's running the job setup. Okay, there's issue with tests. Okay, because we are missing a test script. That's okay. You can, set this up. I can also show you where you can do this. That will be the package.json file. This is where we have our script. We have the dev, the build, lint, preview. Here I don't have the test. Okay, so since there is no test script here, I can add one like this. This usually comes by default, like, have once you set up your node, you should have this, but I have it deleted because I was just, setting up locally. But let's just have this in here for now. I don't have a test script, or I don't have like a test for this application. So I'm just going to do, no test specified, exit, continue. Let me um, commit this. So dash am will be, add the changes I made, updated the test script, and I'll push this. Okay, let's go back to our actions. Let's refresh this. There is another script running. Let's click on the pipeline and see what's going on. Okay, so first to set up the job, run the action, um, run the CI, then run the build if present, run the test. So here is just going to pass because yeah, we said nothing specified, continue and exit, and there is a post and there is a post run. So that's just a simple workflow. This is just to test if our application is running, install the dependencies in the Ubuntu latest, and this is just a simple workflow for integration. And that's all the test. So you can try your hands on other things, try your hands with integration, with deployment, with security, and add more jobs. You can set up different workflow files for different things you want to do. But if it's just one application and you have different components or like different jobs you want to run, instead of just having those jobs in different files, you can have all the jobs all in one file and it will run. It can depend on other jobs. It can also run independently on its own, so you can have them all in one file. Okay, final thing to mention, if you're looking to add secrets, like I've shown for some GitHub actions that might require secrets, especially if you're doing like code quality, like let's say um, snake for instance. Let me click. If you're doing snake for instance and you have gotten the token and you want to add it as a secret in your pipeline, you can, let's say for instance like this snake token or even the GitHub token. So if you've created your personal access token and you want to add this in the repo you're running this pipeline, you go to your settings, you go to secrets and variables, you go to action, then here the repo secret. You give it a name which is going to be the same name that you have in your pipeline, then you paste the secret here or the token on here. So remember, the name is going to be either snake token or whatever token you've created, or whatever name you give it, it will have to have the same name in your pipeline. One cool thing about GitHub secrets, once you save it, you can never retrieve it. It means you can never see it again. So it's only between your pipeline and your GitHub account. So you don't have access to it anymore unless you want to update it with new token. All right, thank you for joining me again today to look at GitHub Action Marketplace. Okay, that will be all for today. If you have questions about GitHub Actions, you can go to the marketplace and search. You can, do research. If you are preparing a POC for your team, you can use a lot of this marketplace actions and write it down, test it out. If it works for your application, then, test it a couple of times. If there are suggestions that the pipeline or like the log is giving you, you can go back and take that back to the developer to improve the code or to improve the pipeline or to improve the infrastructure and test the code again. It's just continuous testing, integration, and deployment. That will be all. If you have questions, feel free to comment, give your feedback. If there is more things you want me to talk on, you let me know in the comments, and I will see you again next time. Thank you. Bye bye.